Hey everybody, and welcome back. If you're new around here, I am Haklava. Normally I am traveling around, living out of my vehicle, geocaching along the way. I wanted to make a very important, informative video today because I learned a lesson the very, very expensive way. Like 5 figures expensive, which is not something that I typically have in my bank account to pay out. So because I learned this lesson the expensive way, I would like to share it with all of you so you do not need to learn it the expensive way as well. So I live in Manitoba. In Manitoba, our insurance is covered by Manitoba Public Insurance. It has always been my experience really, that if I get into an accident and it is not my fault, if it's the other party's fault 100%, then while my vehicle is incapacitated, my insurance essentially sues their insurance and I get a rental car while my vehicle is incapacitated. This has been the case throughout my entire life so far, and although I'm semi-young, I drive for a living. Like, I have driven for a living pretty much since I was 16 or 17, maybe 18, I don't know. For half of my life, I have driven for a living. So now to learn what I thought was true is not true, and for it to cost me over 5 figures in dollars, I really think that I should be sharing it because I'm not the only one that has thought this way. So in 2023, I went out on my spectacular road trip, which you can catch here on this channel. There is a playlist. And I did the entire crazy part of driving up to the Arctic Ocean, to Tuktoyaktuk. I did a loop around Alaska. I came back down. I had 0 issues until I got back to, I believe it's the number 1 or the Yellowhead Highway. So in British Columbia, I got back to this major highway and a tire smoked my vehicle and incapacitated it. Couldn't drive it anymore, more than a few feet. So I was stuck and I was stranded, and obviously a tire coming flying off of me from another vehicle, that's not my fault. The other driver turned out to be uninsured, and I'm thinking, well, okay, this really, really sucks. I'm stranded in British Columbia. I don't currently have a way to get home with all of my stuff because I had my vehicle loaded. I was living in it. I had my kayak. I had everything I could need in case of emergency and just all of my adventure stuff. I now needed to figure out a way to get home because I had to work it another week. Although I was worried about it, I was not overly worried about it. I have good enough credit that I have credit card availability galore, so I can just put everything onto my credit card, and when I get back, when it's all said and done and we figured it all out, my insurance will just reimburse me and then they'll go after the other party, especially since they were uninsured. I have come to figure out that this is not the case, and this is especially not the case in British Columbia. British Columbia has a no-fault insurance policy, which means that regardless of them getting into an accident that's their fault or not, they can't be sued for it. So my insurance policy couldn't just go after theirs. And because I've never needed auto loss of use insurance because I'm normally in normal areas where I absolutely require a vehicle, I'm around home. And so there's always somebody else's vehicle that I can borrow in order to continue to work and get around. And so I've never paid on my own insurance policy for the auto loss of use because it just didn't make any sense. So I don't want you to make the same mistake that I did and not have it when going out on a road trip. Do not just assume that I'll get a vehicle because it's not my fault. I always just assumed that if it's my fault, I will make do and all that kind of stuff. But that's just not the case. It's just not the case. So let me run through some expenses. So in order to get myself and my stuff back, not my car, I was advised to abandon the car and that insurance would deal with it. But I was told to abandon the car. So in order to get myself and my stuff back, I rented a U-Haul. There was no one-way car haulers. There was no one-way car, truck, van rentals. There was no U-Haul one-way rentals available in Kamloops. The closest one that I could find was over in Vernon. So I quickly booked that. And yeah, then I had to figure out how to get to Vernon. So thankfully, there was U-Ride. U-Ride is servicing the Kamloops and the Vernon greater area. So it's not around the corner from each other. It was, I think, an hour and a half drive. So that ride share ended up costing me $280.27 just to go and pick up the U-Haul. Okay? The U-Haul plus the additional kilometers that it took me to get home because the number one highway was closed and I had to take a detour. The original cost me $1,204.49 and then another $31.36 for the additional kilometers. I had to purchase some bins in order to put my stuff in because, all of my cubby holes and whatnot were not available anymore because I was abandoning my car. So for the bins, a lock to lock all of my stuff and a tarp, it cost $94.02. And then imagine that a Kia Soul and a U-Haul, they don't share gas mileage. So this is just the difference that it would have taken me. I used all of the kilometers that I traveled throughout the entire trip up to this point, and I calculated the gas mileage for that. And then I calculated the gas mileage for the U-Haul, and then I figured out how much it would have cost, and then I deducted that. So the difference was $776.83. Now this was all charged to my card in October, and so that incurred some interest. So I applied my interest. So for just in October, it cost me $2,911.86. So it cost me that much to get home. Then in November, I was told that I had to pay my insurance deductible. Even though it wasn't my fault, I still had to pay the $200 insurance deductible. Plus the interest. So now we are at $3,796.16. During this entire time, once I got home until I got my car back, I was stuck in a rental. Did you know that rental cars are not cheap? I know that rental cars are not cheap, but holy crap. So from October until December, that's 3 months, and the rental car cost me $4,971.14. I finally got my car back in December. It was absolutely atrociously dirty from the transport truck. It cost me $23.50 in order to wash it. And then, of course, at the end of December, we have the interest added as well. So at the end, the total expenses for me to get my car back and drivable, and this is just at this point, there were more expenses that incurred too due to the fact that my car was not repaired adequately. They used broken parts that ended up leaking and all of that kind of stuff. But up until this point alone, it was $10,723.90. That's how much it cost me. This is out of pocket. This I had to pay myself because they are not held liable. Honestly, I don't understand this. I honestly thought that if I had to pay this because of their fault, I thought that MPI would be able to reach out and sue them, and then I could get my money back. But no, this is not the case. That's not how it works. I ended up reaching out to the individual, telling them the situation, that my insurance won't just do it for me. And they said, oh, you know, they were pretty nice. And they're like, you know what, we'll pay you back. We understand, and all of this kind of stuff. So they did end up sending me, I think it was $2,000 total. So I did get like $2,000 back to go towards my hefty bill, but that's all I got. They ended up just like dropping off the face of the earth. I don't want to be constantly just like bombarding them like, what the heck? Like, I'm not that type of person. And so when they started being all wishy-washy and not sending the money when they said that they were going to, and I was like, well, what the heck? And then they were flipping out on me because their life was going to shambles, and it's like so then I'm like, okay, well, talk to my insurance. And they're like, no, we will not go after them. And I'm like, but they caused this accident and it cost all of this money, and now I'm left standing here paying it. And I tried to reach out to British Columbia's insurance because they are a licensed driver through them, and they do, I believe, have other vehicles that are registered. They were just moving this vehicle that didn't have any insurance on it, and the tire happened to fall off and take out the front of my vehicle. You know what? Thankfully, I was not injured. However, if I was injured, apparently, then the lawyers out there would actually listen to me and help me. But because I wasn't injured, I'm just left on my own. Yeah. So BC Insurance, they just kept saying, well, you need to go through your insurance. And my insurance kept going, well, it's BC 2021. They have this no sue. So, yeah. If I would have had auto loss of use, then I would have at least gotten the base rate of the U-Haul covered, and I would have gotten the rental car covered. Some of the other stuff I probably wouldn't have gotten covered, but you know what? Oh well. But yeah. Irregardless, the rental car and the U-Haul alone, that's a big chunk of change. And I really don't want anybody else to make this mistake. Even if you cannot afford the auto loss of use insurance on a day-to-day basis, when you go on a road trip and you leave the province, at least of Manitoba, make sure you have auto loss of use. Up it for just the time that you're gone, because you're not necessarily covered. And I have spoken with other Manitobans, my friends, and they were actually under the same assumption that I was, that, well, if I get into an accident and it's not my fault, then the other person will be held liable for paying it back. But no, that's not the case. So anyways, I have no idea how this video came together. I have no idea how much rambling I've done, but I hope I've gotten the point across. This is kind of the aftermath of this spectacular trip. Yeah. Yeah. Yay for having credit cards. And yay for having a job that, at least at the time, I was able to work overtime in order to pay it off. So, I mean, obviously now it's 2025. It's the summer of 2025. Summer. It's the summer of 2025, and I finally do have it paid off. But I could have done so much other things with $10,000. Yeah. Anyways. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to never have to make a talking head video again. And I am going to go head off on a hike now. So, thanks for joining. We'll catch you guys next time.